First of all, we will shape a round neck. A round neck is done by initially taking a number of stitches off at our neckline, and your pattern will tell you how many stitches you do need to remove. In this case, we will say that we are using 10 stitches that we need to have come off of our machine at one time. When you got your knitting machine, you received ravel cord in the lid of your machine. With the bulky machines, we also have what we call bulky ravel cord, which is the best ravel cord to use when taking off your necklines because it's built for the size of yarn you're working with. When we go into shaping a neckline, we do need to take our center neck stitches off of the machine. So we will bring in those stitches or needles to holding position, and with our ravel cord laid into the latches of those stitches, we will bring the latches back, closing the latches over the ravel cord. At this point, we want to hand knit back to B position the ravel cord. You can use your carriage to do this with, but you will find that some yarns will give you a brush mark on the back of your garment and will not give you a nice finish. So it's better to take a few extra minutes and actually hand knit them yourself. Then we want to take our scrap yarn, and at this point we will scrap this ravel cord off. Again, you have laid your thread into the latches, and now you will pull those latches back and knit them through. By pulling the latches back and having the latch hold the thread, you don't have to worry that the thread will not be inside the latch when you take it back. You only need to do a couple rows of what we call hand knitting before you can bind these off around the posts. But you will want to hand or bind these off around the posts before removing them from the machine, because they will ravel back, as we cannot knit as evenly as the machine can. We have now bound these neck stitches off of the machine, and they will go nowhere for us. Lift them off of your sinker posts and put a weight there so that they don't get caught up in your carriage as you go across the needle bed. Place the stitches that are opposite the working needles on this side, in other words on the opposite side of your neck, into holding position or position E on your needle bed. Remember to place your holding button on, because that now will make these needles not knit but will allow these needles to knit. If we are shaping a round neck, depending on the pattern you are using, it will probably tell you to decrease one stitch after knitting one row. So you will take your latch tool or your transfer tool and move over one stitch, and make sure in a round neck that you use your 2-eye transfer tool unless told to do otherwise. Then your pattern may read to knit 2 rows, and again repeat that same decrease by moving 2 stitches over 1 needle. Remember to push that empty needle out of work, and also you need to be made aware that when you are knitting on one side of your machine, it is very likely you will not hit your row counter, because the row counter is built in on this side and you have a tendency to want to stop it early. So make yourself think, hit the row counter. Then you decrease again if your pattern calls for it. Once you have finished your decreasing, you will have a certain amount of rows of straight knitting to do, as your pattern will say. Once you have finished that number of rows, you will break your yarn and knit 1 row of ravel cord over the stitches on the machine. We always scrap on and scrap off in certain areas on our machine, and even though it doesn't look real pretty as we're knitting, this all goes away when we are done. If you have to cover or go across needles that are in holding position, never carry your thread from here on this side over to this point, because you will drop the first needles on this side of your work. Always take that thread across the top of the needles that are in holding position and then knit across. After knitting about 6 to 8 rows of scrap yarn, you will remove these stitches from the machine. At this point, you will adjust your row counter back to where you started the next shaping. And you will shape the other side in the same way that you shaped the first side. You may remove your holding button, thread your machine, and knit one row. You notice that I did not bother to put those needles back to normal knit position. I did not need to do that because I had removed my holding button. After one row, we again remember to shape that first stitch, and this time it's on the opposite side of our neckline. We knit 2 rows and we shaped again. You will continue in this manner, shaping up the other side of your round neckline, the number of rows required. Again, you will remove this side of your work just as you did the other side of your neckline when you removed it on ravel cord and scrap.